I'm Ian Toal here in sunny Riyadh. I'm the chief exec of Alfa Co, which is Alfa Group's food business. We have around 100 restaurants. We have quick serve, we have a sandwich and soup business, we have a steakhouse business, Italian chain and a burger chain. If I start by saying that I think Saudi probably had the biggest lockdown of most of the countries in terms of operationally. So when the pandemic first hit, our sales actually dropped by 95% on day one. Delivery was still able to be done, but none of the delivery companies actually had permits to be out delivering. So it really was massively challenging. We started with pickup. We put pickup tables outside. We tried to keep staff morale high. We did many promotions as the legislation changed differently every single day. But the first thing we did really was to recognize we had to focus on reopening. Many of my colleagues in various chains talked to me about what did you do? Well, we did many things, and I'll try and keep it brief. I mean, the first thing we did was we actually created delivery pickup windows in every single restaurant to make sure that when we did reopen, delivery drivers never entered our restaurants again. The other thing we did was focus on how we make sure we looked after our colleagues, and we banned travel for our colleagues long before the lockdown, actually, to try and prevent COVID in our business. And to this date, we've had a number of our colleagues who are isolated, but none in our restaurants that actually contracted COVID so far, so touch wood. We even set up separate accommodations for isolation periods because we want to make sure everybody was safe. The other things we did was really focus on how we reopened and making sure that we were relevant for the future, because right in the middle of this COVID situation, obviously the government put an extra 10% VAT on, which was probably the last thing we wanted to happen in the run into reopening. So when we reopened, I think it was our 10th week ago now, we opened with 25% less tables. We did around 100% more of the actions than the government actually asked us to do. So for example, every one of our restaurants when we reopen has contactless, not just menu, but you can order from your table, so you don't even have to speak to a waiter or waitress server. So in reality, we also manned our salad bar so nobody could touch the utensils again, so people felt safe. We actually put all of our crockery, all of our cutlery, all of our condiments in pre-sanitized bags, so that anytime you walked into our restaurant when we reopened, the fact of the matter is that everything you actually touched had been sanitized before you walked in. You're actually safer in our restaurants now than you are in a supermarket or a pharmacy, quite frankly. So we focused on safety first. The other thing we did was we worked very hard on marketing throughout the pandemic. Even though we were shut down, we were probably the biggest marketing spend in the kingdom in restaurants through the period to make sure we were front of mind for our guests when they came back. And when they came back, actually, we were really surprised because I've lost count with the amount of consultants that told me dine-in was dead. I lost control. I've lost count with the amount of webinars I've been on that says the whole industry is going to change forever. And I have to say 10 weeks after reopening, we're now over 100% of our pre-COVID sales levels across our estate with 25% less tables and chairs. So it seems like confidence is coming back. We've tried to create a really safe environment for guests. Our delivery business has been building throughout the COVID, and we actually exited the business with a very good delivery business. We did in online what we did in 4 months. We've talked about doing for 4 years, which is we actually put ourselves online with all of our brands. You can now order from our website. You can have a delivery from ourselves. We actually launched apps for all of our brands. And the most interesting thing is how big pickup has become after COVID. People feel safer picking stuff up sometimes than they do actually even having a delivery. So I could wax lyrical about this for ages, but you did say to keep it to 2 minutes. So yeah, there's many things we've done. And I think the most important thing is we looked after our colleagues throughout the whole of the lockdown. We've made sure everyone was treated fairly. We all took a voluntary pay cut to make sure we didn't have to borrow money through the crisis. We've got everybody back onto full pay now. We're now paying everybody back. So I think the whole point for me is to make sure that the staff that came out of this with us came out of it as motivated and as gauged as possible. And I think everybody's quite excited to be back in the game now. Our flagship restaurant, believe it or not, we refurbed it in February just before the lockdown, is now tracking something like 200% up year on year. So we're seeing real recovery in the kingdom. I think like many people, we closed some legacy sites during the lockdown, but most of our locations are opened pretty much on day one of the relaxing of the protocols. And yeah, we're quite excited about the future now. Certainly, I've gone through many a day of worry, as we all have. But I really believe that as long as the kingdom stays on an even keel, that we can really sort of take new opportunities and be more innovative. Like we launched a whole range of half-size meals to try and create value after the VAT thing for people. So we didn't, if you believe it or not, in Saudi Arabia, we even have happy hour now. It means something very different here, by the way. But so I think innovation is the key that's really made us bounce back very quickly. That's just kind of a few ideas of what we did.
Excellent, Ian. Thank you very much for being with us. Just a very quick kind of like follow-up, but we've been hearing from lots of sources that Saudi's kind of like recovering faster than the rest of the market in the Middle East. What would you attribute that to?
I think part of it is the fact that we have COVID cases in a controllable level. I personally know 37 people who've had COVID, not one of them didn't recover. So I think everybody in Saudi now knows somebody, a family member or a friend or an uncle or an aunt, that's had COVID and survived. So I think the absolute paranoia that if you get COVID, you're going to die is subsiding. I think confidence is coming back. I think people are eating in places where they feel safe. That's the number one feedback I get on our social media and our customer feedback is, if I feel safe, I'm going out. If I don't feel safe, I'm not. So I guess, you know, partly the country is in a solid position. Partly 3 or 4 million Saudis haven't left for Europe or America to go on holiday after second Eid. So there's a kind of more people here than there would be normally. And eating out is becoming the thing that you can do where you feel safe if you're in the right environment. A good question. And I'm not one to lecture our government here in Saudi Arabia on what they really have to do. I think the reality is, if you look at what happened in the UK with the government helping with VAT and things like that, I mean, our industry, the last thing it really needed was another 10% VAT going on just after COVID. I have to say, to one of the other panel members' point, in fairness, post the 10% VAT and post the COVID, our actual ticket prices, our ticket value, check that average has gone up. So actually, I'm really surprised by that. I think from a government point of view, they've been pretty good in supporting us with Saudis and helping with funding of Saudi salaries. So I think the government got a lot right here during the COVID lockdown. I have to say, I've been very impressed with how they've handled most things. My closing thoughts, and I'll echo what many people have said, I think Phil picked it up very well, is I think the future is very positive for those operators who are proper operators that understand their guests. We've had a lot of fun in this lockdown. We launched a cook at home range. We opened our own butchers and deli store during the range because we couldn't actually open restaurants. So that was a wonderful bit of fun that we had that we didn't even plan to do. But for me, my final thoughts is dining is not dead. If you're a great operator, you make guests feel safe and they get great value for money, great quality, and most importantly, a great experiential day out, evening out, whatever it might be, then you'll still survive this and grow. As some of us in the room have already said, we're already seeing that. But one thing that I believe that we have to take seriously as a business, and we were slow to this, let's be honest, as a restaurant business, we were slow to digitization. Aggregators did it better than us for a long time. We let them build a business and then we moan about it afterwards. Reality is, we have done more to change our digital outlook in the last 4 or 5 months than we've done in 4 or 5 years. And I for one, and we're setting up the whole digital off-premise experience as a separate part of our business. That's how serious I am about it, whether it be the online experience, whether it be off-premise, whether it be pickup. And you know, we're in the process, we already have 26 cloud kitchens today that we operate in our business through our own restaurants. And we're in the process of now opening a number of cloud brands, a number of cloud kitchens. And somebody asked me, and I'll answer the question, would I consider a Piatto in the southern region of Saudi Arabia, which is not on my agenda today to talk about. But one of the things I think cloud kitchens do is really give operators the chance to go to areas they wouldn't have gone before to assess demand in a very cost-effective way, before spending multi-tens of millions on locations and finding they don't work. So I think the digitization and the opportunity to do new things and to be nimble, as somebody else said as well, that's what we've got to adopt going forward, and listen to our guests and be ready to change, not in 6 months' time, but in a month's time, in a week's time. But just in summary, I'm delighted with how the great operators have come through this. By the way, one of the panelists said they opened Mamo's here in Riyadh. I went the other day, it was superb, I have to say, well done. But I think, you know, the future is bright for those people who are good. And I think the people that haven't done enough, the people that haven't worked hard enough, and the people that have just sat back and done nothing, I think those operators are going to struggle, and I feel for them as I feel for everybody in our industry that isn't doing a great, or doing great right now.
Sentiments, Ian. Thank you very much for that, and thank you very much for being with us today. Much appreciated.